Welcome to part 3 of Perfect Competition. Yet again, I have this screen up for you to review. Yes, I keep hammering this into your brain cells. These characteristics are extremely important. When it's all said and done, we will do 4 different market structures and we got to keep them all straight. So review this screen. Pause if you have to. Moving on. Here are your graphs side by side. You've seen this a couple times now. Be attentive to these side-by-side graphs. Be attentive to 1, 2, and 3 up above. Never, ever, ever forget profit max, MR equals MC, the decision making of the perfectly competitive firm, MR equals MC. Never, never forget. Okay, so what this video is going to do is change it up a little bit, and we're going to throw an extra curve into the situation. We're going to throw in the ATC curve, the average total cost curve, average total cost. Basically, look at this as the firm's cost of production. So when they decide what their profit maximizing quantity is, they want to take a look at the average total cost of producing that quantity, and that is their cost per unit, or on average of producing at that particular quantity. Now, taking a look at this graph, let's get it straight. Off screen here to the left is the market graph, this supply and demand graph. What I'm doing is I'm cutting the market side off and we're zeroing in on the firm side. So in the back of your head, you have another graph out here to the left. I just did not draw it. All right, the condition that we see here is called equilibrium, the long run equilibrium for the perfectly competitive firm. What I want you to notice with this is that in this particular case, price equals average total cost. Extremely important for you to know price equals total cost. Price is the firm's marginal revenue, and at the profit maximizing quantity, at MR equals MC, you find that quantity, you hit this point right here, right in the middle, right there. And what we see is the price at profit max equals the ATC. We're all happy campers. If we were to calculate numerically the total revenue that the firm receives from selling this quantity at the market price, and then we were to calculate the total cost of producing that quantity, we would see that total revenue would equal total cost, which means that their profit is 0. Now remember, we're dealing with economic profit, not accounting profit. And this is long run equilibrium. When the firms are in this condition, there is no incentive for other firms to enter the market, and there is no reason for existing firms to exit the market. Due to the fact that in perfect competition there are no barriers to entry and exit, this becomes the long run equilibrium. And we're going to see that more clearly in a minute. So there's your long, well, let's not wait a minute. Let's see what this means by looking at a short run condition and try to understand why this is long run and the others are short run. So short run condition is positive economic profit. What I want you to notice here is step 1, identify MR equals MC. That's the first thing you do. You find profit max quantity of production. So we have that established here. Now I want you to take note of where this quantity hits that ATC. I'm going to use this little line here so you can see. All right, I want you to notice that right there, this little dot, that is where the profit maximizing quantity hits the ATC. So what I want you to do is compare the dollar amount of the average cost of producing the profit max quantity with the price tag of that quantity on the open market. And what you find is that the price is greater than the average total cost. What that means is this firm is earning positive economic profit. When you draw a graph and you are asked to illustrate the area of economic profit, I want you to do it exactly as you see here. What you need to do, the way it is done, is you establish the quantity at MC equals MR, as we have done here. Find where that vertical quantity dotted line hits the ATC, and then cut straight over to the price axis. Now, many students have been tempted to have this dotted line at the lowest point of ATC. See that right there? No, wrong, bad, don't do that. You want to find where the profit max hits the ATC, which is right there. Not down here, whoops, not down here, it's right there. So be very, very careful. This is very nitpicky. Once you've identified where the profit max quantity hits the ATC, you create a rectangle. What you want to do now is you want to shade that area in. Then you want to label. Always shade and label. Always shade and label, as you see here. You can also indicate the price is greater than ATC as part of your labeling. That would be a nice finishing touch to it. So what you see here is, in fact, positive economic profit. Now, this is short run only. Take a look at the bottom left, short run only. Why? Because there are no barriers to entry and exit. Right now, this firm is making a killing. They have positive economic profit. They're making extra money. So out there in our society are going to be other potential investors that are going to see that this industry is thriving. So what they're going to want to do is they're going to want to get a piece of the action. Since there are no barriers to entry and exit, we're going to see more firms begin to open up to get a piece of this positive profit. So if we take a look at our good old side-by-side graph, all right, this is what we just did. We have the positive profit. You know, in the previous screen, we had it shaded and we had it labeled. So if we take a look at what we just did in the last screen, that's what we see here. I need to get rid of that. Okay, this is what we just seen. Now I'm going to include the market side. So what's going to happen is, if you take a look at this supply curve, we're going to have a few firms enter the market to get a piece of that profit. So the supply curve starts to shift rightward. As more and more and more firms enter into the market, the supply curve on the market side is going to start to move up and up and up. Well, how far will the supply curve shift? It's going to keep shifting until the zero profit level is reached. So the supply curve is going to shift until we have a new market equilibrium with a new market equilibrium price, a new market equilibrium quantity, and on the firm side, we're going to have a new price, which means we're going to have a new MR. Oops. A new MR. The MR is going to go down. We saw this in the previous video, how this happens. And it's going to keep, the supply on the market side is going to keep going up until the new marginal revenue reaches the zero profit point. When that is reached, the positive profit for the firms go away. The individual firm has a new profit maximizing quantity. In the previous video, we took a look at curve shifts and how this works. Go back and review it if you're confused at this point. But ultimately, take a look at where we wind up. We were, price was greater than ATC. Now, because of entry into the market, price now equals ATC. Well, when price equals ATC here, that is zero profit. That is long run. So this price is greater than ATC, which is your positive profit, is a temporary state of being. It cannot last. Eventually, that's going to go away, and we're going to be wind up with this condition, P equals ATC, which is what you see here at Q2, P2, and then here's the market side. So to summarize, positive economic profit is a short-run condition because it creates entry, it spurs entry into the market. As more and more firms enter the market, the supply curve on the market side starts to shift right or go up, lowering the equilibrium price, resulting in the price-taking, perfectly competitive firm having a lower and lower MR until it settles in where P equals ATC for the firm, which is your long-run condition. Now let's take a look at negative economic profit. In this particular case, start with the same first step you did before. MC equals MR, set the quantity. Bam, there you go, you see it. Now what we want to do is we want to extend that quantity line up until it hits the ATC, as you see here. All we're doing is extending the profit max quantity up, because what we want to do is we want to find out at the profit max quantity, what's the price tag and what's the cost of production. ATC is the cost of production. Therefore, at profit max quantity, the P, the market price, is the price, but we got to extend it up to the ATC to find the average cost of producing that quantity. Then we cut over to this axis, we shade it, we label it, and we can put, if we want to just put the icing on the cake, we can put the condition, price is less than ATC. This is a loss. This firm's not doing well. Now, we're going to assume that this loss is not so great as to spur shutdown. This loss is a temporary loss, and the firm's going to stay in business. It's not actually going to close its doors, okay? However, not all firms are going to be able to stay in business. Different firms have different strengths, different levels of costs, and so on. So not every firm is equal. We're going to assume this firm, however, is strong enough to wait out this loss in the long run. So given that there is a loss, and again, please notice where the quantity hits the ATC, how I made this rectangle to be shaded. Don't accidentally go to the lowest ATC point, because that would be wrong. So be attentive to how these lines are drawn and where they connect. Anyway, this firm stays, but it's a short run condition. Why is it short run? Because the weaker firms, let's go to this graph again, the weaker firms start to drop out of the market, which means as the weaker firms drop out of the market, the supply curve begins to go down as we have fewer and fewer sellers in the market. That's going to drive the equilibrium price up and up and up, and it's going to continue to go up until we have a new equilibrium price, we have a new price-taking price. I'm now going to get rid of that and that. And we have a new marginal revenue at the new market price. We have a new quantity of output. So we have a new quantity for the firm. We have a new quantity for the market. And this is the result. So as the weaker firms drop away, the supply on the market goes down, it drives the price up, and we eventually wind up at P equals ATC. So when P is less than ATC, that is a loss. However, because of exit from the market, the supply will go down on the market side, driving the price up, driving the marginal revenue up, and the surviving firms wind up in the long run where price equals ATC, which is the long run condition. So to recap, negative profit incurs a loss. As a result, the weaker firms drop out of the market, forcing the supply curve on the market side to go down or shift left, driving equilibrium price up, driving marginal revenue for the firm up, until it eventually settles where P equals ATC, which is the long run condition for perfect competition. And the very last condition is shutdown. This is shutdown. We've already talked about in class how a firm will decide whether to shut down or stay in business based upon what the short run loss is compared to the long run loss. Fixed cost is the variable here. If shutting down in the short run incurs a greater cost than their fixed, they're going to shut down because the fixed costs are cheaper. So how this plays out on the graph is we want to add the average variable cost into the equation. And if price is less than the average variable cost, which profit max MCMR, this is the quantity they're going to produce, notice that extending this line, hitting the AVC there, price is actually less than your AVC. This firm will shut down. Pause the video, read the bottom, and read your module to round out this idea.